Welcome to Season 3 of the Love, Health, Prosperity podcast. And like always, what we try to do is bring value to this channel. You know that this channel is not only about mental health, it's also about family cohesiveness, how to manage emotions, and be able to connect with not only the people in your family, but also with your wife, your children, and anybody around you. It's all about bringing peace to the environment in which you are. So the topic of today's session is going to be managing your moody teenager's emotions. Not only your teenager though, it can also be your child, and what a difficult thing that may be. A lot of times we often ask ourselves, what can we do to improve our communication and our connection with our children? And sometimes we fail to connect with ourselves. That's what makes it more difficult. And when we are emotionally dysregulated, then it makes it very difficult to be able to really communicate effectively towards a goal that's going to make it beneficial for not only you, but also your children to connect with you and your husband or spouse as well, just to make sure that we clarify on that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and provide the tips that are going to make our relationship stronger with our kiddos. Now, the number one thing that you want to understand right now off the bat is that you are not their friend. You are actually in a position in which you have to be able to orchestrate the situation all the time. A lot of parents really want to have that connection where they say to themselves, well, I get along very well with my daughter or my son. We're like friends. But see, when you do that, you're actually putting yourself in a position in which you guys are equal. And I'm not trying to say that you're superior, you're the parent. And as a parent, you need to make difficult decisions sometimes that sometimes can be very hurtful for us to make because they're our children. We want them to like us. But as we've noticed with psychology, you can't allow for your children to be able to say that they can manage your emotions. You can't. On the contrary, you have to put yourself in a very neutral position in which you're able to overlook and able to understand why your child is behaving a certain way. So understand that you are not their friend. You can't talk to them in a certain way. You have to be very approachable, but at the same time, you have to understand that you are the guardian. You're the adult. You're the one that's going to help them find a solution to whatever problem needs to be addressed. So when it comes to teenagers, beware also, number 2, of their personality types. There's different personalities out there. Some teenagers, some children are easier to get along than with others. Let me explain this a little more. When we're talking about teenagers, sometimes teenagers can be very good, don't get me wrong. Sometimes you don't even have an issue with them. They're automated, they wake up, they do their thing, they get along well with people, they function well with others, and in the household, they just go to school, do their job, come back, repeat. That's the ideal. But there's other teenagers that are extremely moody. Sometimes it's hard to connect with them. Sometimes they're antisocial in regards to communication. All they want to do is be in their room or just listen to music and have their headphones on. And sometimes that's what makes it difficult to connect with them. And then when you do try to connect with them, they look at you, they roll their eyes or they sigh, and they give you that impression that they don't like you. But here's the thing, what you're trying to do is make that connection, let them understand that you have to make it safe to connect with one another. And the reason for this is because you want them to be admired and liked by the rest of society as well. When a child is not socialized correctly, you need to understand that sometimes the world can look down upon them, and it can make it very difficult for them to be in a network in which they can thrive, where they can make their dreams come true, where they could feel loved and accepted. And a lot of times, and I'm sure you've known some teenagers and some children, that sometimes don't get that love and that affection because they just can't make those connections with other teenagers. As a matter of fact, you'll see it. They're alone most of the time. Or when they're at the playground, no kid wants to play with them. The reason for that is because they haven't been socialized correctly. So that's what you want to do. Number 3, you have to understand what discipline is. Discipline means to teach, to guide, and to model. Yes, just the way you heard it. We have to be able to educate our children, teach them in a very effective manner. Not only that, you also have to guide them through the whole thing. If you see behaviors that are undesirable in your child, then it's your responsibility to be able to address them. It's your responsibility to let them know that how they're behaving, acting, or communicating with the world is not the correct way of doing it. And I know it's trial and error. And I know a lot of times we want for them to kind of explore and find their way. Doesn't mean you can't step in though. You can. You can make that impact. You can be that one person that can bring them that easy ability to connect with others. But you have to be able to guide them through that. The other thing is that you have to model those behaviors as well. Modeling those behaviors means that if you don't want them to do certain things, then you can't do them yourself also. So when you have that conversation regarding communicating well with others, being kind with others, not using drugs, not using cigarettes, alcohol, whatever the case might be, you have to be able to set that example. I'm not trying to be rigid, but the thing here is that you have to be very strategic with the way you communicate with your child in their environment. Remember, discipline means to teach, to guide, and to model. And this is something that I learned from one of my good friends. And I thank her a lot for this because this is the way I've been doing it with my children, and I've noticed that it's actually extremely helpful. So take this one piece of tool that is going to really bring you good benefits to raising your child. Number 4, you cannot lose your cool. Your teen or your child will test you. And there's going to be times where you don't like him. You'll dislike him. And again, if you are having those emotions towards your child, well, think about what the rest of society is going to think about them. So you have to be very careful. You have to set rules. You have to set boundaries. And those boundaries don't have to be too rigid either. You just have to be able to enforce them also. Lots of times, again, we're afraid to enforce those boundaries because we don't want to shut down that communication. But teenagers are going to test you. Children will test you. What that means is that they're going to see what it is that they can get away with if you're not there to set those specific boundaries. Understand this. Every child is different and every family dynamic is different as well. So what I'm talking here is something generalized. It's not something directed towards your child, but something that you could use to help in whatever universal setting this might apply to. So you are their pillar. You are that one person that's going to make a difference in their life. They're looking up to you and your decisions, and they're seeing how hard you're working to bring the family peace, love, and prosperity. You are the model, you are the pillar, and you're the people that even though sometimes you feel that you can't connect with them, and maybe you even feel that they don't like you, they're looking at every single thing that you're doing. And that's magnificent, because you need to hear that. Because a lot of times you feel that that's not the case, when it indeed is. Understand that. You are their go-to person when things get tough. You are that one person that's always going to be there regardless of the situation. So you have to make it safe for them to connect. Raising children is not an easy thing. It can be quite difficult. It can be frustrating. And yes, they're going to bring out those emotions that you're going to question. But it's up to us to be able to self-regulate our own emotions, to be able to make those significant connections with them and have them understand that we're here for them to make them better people, to make them better citizens, and for them to thrive in the future, because that's what we want for them to do. One of these days, they'll turn around, they're going to look at you, and they're going to thank you for all those wonderful things that you did for them. Don't lose your patience. Thank you for watching. And if you're interested in coaching services, or if you're interested in more information, please don't forget to tune in to the next episode of the Love, Health, Prosperity podcast. We'll see you next week.